The bottom line here is when people step foot into the training, they need to already understand the big picture around this training.
This sounds like a stupid question.
Probably is, because, go ahead.
Skilled managers equals high morale, which equals all that cool stuff that you cannot pay for and you can't punish for. When you close off that feedback channel, you are not going to be able to hear the truth. In the first microseconds, your brain can't tell the difference between physical danger and what we call social danger.
I'm pissed off at you.
Me, specifically?
Well, just because you're my boss and all.
Employees tend to get promoted until they reach their level of incompetence. Go forward and don't suck.
Hey, everybody. It's Ethan Nash here, one of your co-hosts. It's just me today. And welcome to the Managing with Mind and Heart podcast, y'all. Let me paint a familiar scene, or one that might be a familiar scene for you and your organization. A group of people, maybe everybody in your organization, everybody on your team goes through this dynamic and inspiring training where they're learning really awesome skills and behaviors and mindsets to start transforming the way people think and view their job, their role, how they interact with people, how they engage as a leader or a manager. And then this training comes to an end, and everybody's excited. Wow, we have all these new skills and mindsets, and we are pumped to put these into practice. Now, fast forward a few weeks or months, and nobody is talking about this training again, or even using the skills learned in this training. And why does this happen? From my perspective, oftentimes this happens because the training is seen solely as an event rather than an ongoing process, like a change process that needs some actual change management. So the skills and behaviors are sustained beyond the event of the training. And when we view these types of training just as an event rather than a process, it's really costly. In fact, a lot of the research that I look at shows that the ROI on trainings in general within an organization, the ROI is pretty low. And this, I think, is due to the kind of check the box mentality around this training. We got approval for this training, and now, boom, we check the box. Everybody's gone through it. So now what's next? What's our next training in this organization? Now, this type of mentality, of course, makes sense for, a 2-hour training on how to fill out sales notes or how to log patient data in your new system, because that's one specific, narrowly focused skill that people are going to be using day in and day out. So those trainings inherently are easier to sustain. Now for the type of trainings that we often conduct at Nash Consulting, where we are centered around behavioral change and transformation, mainly getting leaders on the same page and practicing a unified set of skills and behaviors. These are management skills centered around how to lead in a way that builds morale, creates trust and respect with the people you manage, and builds engagement. So these are social emotional skills. These are emotional IQ skills. And these are harder to sustain than, say, a training on how to fill out time cards. The latter is more black and white. Either people are filling out the time cards correctly or they're not, and it's easier to course correct along the way. The former, the emotional IQ skills, the leadership skills, they're more nuanced, and it takes much more effort to sustain the learnings well into the future. Because many organizations stop when the training ends. And almost guaranteed, people will not be practicing these skills and behaviors a year from now just because they went through a training. And what happens is it becomes the flavor of the month. And when people keep seeing the flavor of the month happening in their organization, it can really damage that organization's ability to create long-lasting behavioral change, because people hold their breath and wait for this change to go away. Wait for the initial excitement around this training and the change to go away, because they've seen it many times before. We can hold our breaths, and eventually we can just kind of get back to the way we were doing things before. And this creates a culture of resistance to new changes, which can be really damaging and has some really serious implications on morale, engagement, innovation, adaptability, which are all core elements of sustaining high-performing organizations. So the key, folks, to preventing this is a robust plan for sustainability that begins not after, but alongside your training efforts. So here in this mini episode, I'm going to give you some ideas on how savvy leaders can keep the change alive long after the initial excitement of the training starts to wane. So, the first and one of the most important things that needs to happen before the training even begins is a high level of sponsorship. Now, what that means essentially is the person with authority in the organization or on the team, typically the person with the highest level of authority, right? The CEO, the general manager, whoever, clearly states why this training is happening, what it's going to entail, and what will be expected of the people after the conclusion of the training. And this should include, in most cases, the message that the skills and behaviors that we are learning today in this training are going to be part of your experience moving forward, meaning you will be expected to practice these skills and continue to sharpen them up well past the conclusion of the training, meaning the skills that we're learning here today are here to stay. Now, this sponsorship message is critical because if people are not hearing it from the person at the top of the org chart, in most cases, they're not going to engage in the training with the same level of focus. So, that's number one. There has to be sponsorship around this training, or people generally are not going to take it seriously. People need to know what's going to be expected of them after the conclusion of this training. And included in this sponsorship messaging, as well as beyond the initial sponsorship messaging, leaders and organizations need to clarify and communicate the vision around this training. Again, we are talking about the type of training where an organization is implementing it to create some sort of lasting change within the organization. And guess what? People don't welcome change just because we think they should. We have to facilitate the acceptance of change by managing the message and painting a clear vision, at least as a starting point. It all starts with a clear vision. If people don't know where they're headed or what's in it for them, the road is going to end up taking them anywhere. And John Cotter, who's kind of a top, I would call him maybe a top thought leader on leadership and change management in academia, he finds that a whopping 70% of change initiatives fail due to inadequate buy-in and insufficient communication. The bottom line here is when people step foot into the training, they need to already understand the big picture around this training. This could be through compelling storytelling. It could be painting an image of a positive future that this change is going to align with. But as you're thinking about communicating the vision behind this change that the training is connected to, consider these questions. Why is this change happening? How does this training connect to the overall change? How is this training connected to the larger vision or mission of our organization? How does it align with our values? Where in general are we going with this? And why does this even matter and why should I care? Meaning, what's in it for me? The more we can articulate these messages in different forms and through different channels leading up to the training as well as after the conclusion of the training, the better people are going to wrap their heads around the fact that this is a real thing and I see where we're going with this. People need to see a clear path and vision of the future. Hopefully, this vision statement that you're creating becomes your North Star related to this change, which means you have to keep it visible and you have to keep it vibrant throughout the organization. It's actually been said that people need to hear a message at least 8 times before they fully internalize it. I actually think it's probably more than 8 times. So keep communicating the vision, keep communicating the big picture until you and everybody else is sick of hearing it. That's the level of communication we're talking about here. The next piece of advice for you here is you need to find ways to integrate the learnings from this training into your systems within your organization. For example, leaders coming together to learn best practice management skills. You've painted a strong vision of why this is important for your organization and where you're going with this. People go through the training, they get through it. Now, if you want these skills to actually be practiced, they have to be embedded into certain human systems, such as the skills and behaviors we've learned. They're now part of our performance evaluation processes. They're now part of our reward structures. We now will promote people partially based on their ability to practice these skills and behaviors and do them well. As much as you can, you have to find the systems in your organization that are going to reinforce the learnings of the training and ultimately that reinforce the change that you're trying to create through this training. And what this ultimately is doing is this type of alignment will turn this isolated initiative, this isolated training, into a consistent fabric of your organization. And again, I think one of the best systems for this is your performance metrics, right? So rethinking your performance metrics to reflect these new priorities, these new skills and behaviors. For example, if customer centricity is now the goal, and you've brought people through a training to help them focus on that priority, your performance measures should not just celebrate sales, but also applaud customer satisfaction and engagement, for example. If providing team members with more constructive feedback is a new priority and a cultural shift that you're trying to make, well, include this in your performance reviews or screen for job applicants who are willing and able to provide this level of feedback, or find ways to promote or reward those who are exemplifying the behavior. So I think you get it. You have to look at your systems within the organization and find ways to implement the learnings of the training that align with the change that you're seeking. The next piece here is about continually equipping people with the skills and behaviors from the training. This means ongoing education and reinforcement. Again, change is not a one-time event, but a continuous journey. And we actually know that effective adult learning requires repetition and reinforcement, just to state the obvious. So what this might look like, this might be looking like you organizing regular refresher courses on these skills. It might be creating communities of practice that review and discuss the topics and skills. It could be providing just general resources that help employees stay engaged with the learning throughout time. A way to look at this is if the initial training is the download, then all the follow-up learning that comes after that are the updates that ensure the software not only remains functional but improves and adapts over time. Basically, you have to keep the learning fresh and relevant. So this is about continuously re-equipping people beyond the initial event of the training. What I often encourage organizations to do is start mapping out a calendar of reinforcement and education activities surrounding this change. All right, so there's a calendar. I start mapping in. All right, this quarter we're going to do a follow-up workshop. We're going to do a webinar here. At this point, we're going to have a lunch and learn where we're going to discuss some of the core change themes. All right, just start planning out the learning activities even before people go through the initial training. So that's all about equipping people after the initial change. My next piece here is about creating accountability. And what I mean by this is ensuring that people know that they are required to practice these skills and behaviors, which I mentioned earlier. Oftentimes, I see leaders and organizations stop at just the equipping piece. We're going to keep giving you new skills and tools, and we're going to give you more learning opportunities so you can continue to sharpen the axe around these skills. But they forget the piece that most people are generally not going to continue to practice the skills unless they know it's required. Now, the next piece here is all about fostering deep involvement. One of my favorite quotes, one of my favorite change management quotes is, "Change is disturbing when it's done to us, but exhilarating when it's done by us." At the end of the day, engagement is going to be your secret sauce of successful change. The more people are involved in the change process, the more invested in and engaged they are in seeing it succeed. This is just human nature. When employees feel they are co-architects of the change, their commitment to ensuring its success multiplies. I think a really cool way to do this is creating what you might call a change ambassador program. A group of people that are selected from, across a bunch of different groups and teams and departments with different skill sets, and they come together centered around this change to work on institutionalizing the change across the different levels and departments of the organization. Now, these change ambassadors, they're a little bit different than a change management team, which I'm not going to get into the nuances of that here, but basically, they're people throughout your organization that are going to continue to promote the change, maybe to set up learning opportunities around the change, to encourage people to keep practicing the skills and behaviors, to reward people that they're seeing exemplify the skills and behaviors, to even give feedback to people regarding the change, to receive feedback about how people are doing with the change, how they're feeling about it, how they're adapting to it. And the cool thing about this is, these change ambassadors are often, kind of your eyes and ears throughout the organization that help you get a read on how this change is being received and how well it's being adopted. Now, of course, you need to train these change ambassadors and empower them. You have to equip them with the necessary tools and knowledge to succeed in this role. This might include some training sessions on, the specifics of the change, or on conflict resolution, or on communication skills, ways to encourage feedback. And additionally, you have to sponsor their role as well. Someone with authority in the organization has to publicly empower them that will allow them and enable them to, act confidently and support their teams effectively. But yeah, work with these ambassadors to really, clarify their role as well. This might include, again, disseminating information about the change throughout the organization. It might be gathering feedback, identifying challenges, celebrating the small wins along the way. Really, they should act as a bridge between the workforce and management and providing both sides with timely updates and insights. And again, this comes back to involving people in the change, right? when the change is only being driven by management, it's not as powerful. It should be driven by all levels of the organization, and the Change Ambassador program is a way to create a coalition of people that are specifically here to help promote this change throughout the organization. And by doing this, by integrating these elements into your program, by setting up this Change Ambassador program, it helps to ensure that the change is not something that is done to employees, but something that is done with them. And I think at the end of the day, this is going to help mitigate some of the inevitable resistance that comes with change. But it also leverages kind of the collective energy and intelligence of your workforce, which ultimately is going to make the implementation of the change over time be a more unified and positive experience for everybody. So, folks, that's what I have for you today. Just a few ideas, tips, tricks for ensuring that your training is not a one-time event, but it's a process, so that change actually is sustained over time. If there's one thing you take away from this, it's knowing that keeping a change alive, keeping the skills learned from a training alive requires deliberate action. It requires consistent leadership. It requires involvement of the workforce. It's about turning these new practices into the norm and not just a passing phase. So just remember, if you're serious about the change that's connected to your training, the goal is to weave these changes, these skills, and these behaviors into the very DNA of your organization. So there you go. I'm hoping that with some of these steps that I've provided you, you can start to ensure that your change initiatives and your trainings are sustainable for the long term. All right. Thanks, y'all. Bye. Hey, folks, wait. Don't go yet. Please, stay with me for 1 second here. I want to let you know about a couple cool little goodies that we have available for you. If you dig this podcast, you will probably also dig our Managing with Mind and Heart newsletter. This is a monthly newsletter where we share articles that we write about, hey, how to thrive as a manager, how to lead teams that are characterized by high morale, engagement, psychological safety, care and respect, collaboration, and high performance. You can sign up for this newsletter by texting the word leading to the number 66866. Additionally, you can go to our website and sign up for the newsletter there. Our website is www.nashconsulting.com. And of course, if you're not already aware, we have our cornerstone program for leaders and managers, and it is called Managing with Mind and Heart. Go figure. This program is something that we often bring into organizations to work with all their leaders on helping them get aligned and singing off the same sheet of music with best practice management skills and behaviors. We've brought this to hundreds of organizations at this point with really good results. And if you are not able or inclined to bring our program in-house, twice a year, in the spring and in the fall, we offer this 6-day Managing with Mind and Heart leadership development program online for anybody that would like to sign up and join us. To learn more about this online course and to register, you can go to our website. Once again, that's nashconsulting.com. Or send us an email at contact@nashconsulting.com. All right, that's all. That's it. See you later. Bye.